This video will be philosophizing on intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties, meaningful to engage more healthy psychological functioning with the cultivation of love for learning, elaborating existing priors from exploring unknown unknowns, creatively brainstorming possible probabilistic internal and or external characteristics. One engages characterizing of certain component parts and or processes to infer intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties. Within comparative analysis, to allowance one to, within the future-oriented direction, identify and or extrapolate from data on certain existing intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties, inferred from BADAX, cause-effect dynamico associações, in relation to the causations connecting certain existing intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties, meaningful to elaborate one's prior existing self-knowledge and or self-awareness, meaningful to engage clearer communications and or thinking and or originality within one's thought processes, meaning that intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties are most meaningful to often engage creativity and or creative problem solving in relation to inferences into causations. For example, one may desire to satisfy a certain underlying psychological need to regulate one's body temperature. Yet one does not like a certain texturing in relation to maybe a sort of scratchy feeling one gets from a sweater and or a certain t-shirt, and so one might get a thinner material undershirt to put underneath the sweater and or shirt to modulate one's temperature, inferring certain intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties related to the clothing and the distinct fabrics within the clothing responsible for thermoregulation, allowancing for inferences into distinct intrinsic properties and or intrinsic processes associated with one's direct perception, inferences into conductivities within mind-body connections, conducted reciprocal dynamical relational to the satisfactions of certain underlying psychological needs from the byproducts and or residuals and or derivatives inferred from existing, non-existing processes and or non-existing properties to mean only uniquely the intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties meaningful to satisfy certain underlying psychological needs and or improve one's internal and or external conditions from certain causations, meaningful to cultivate meaningful living from one's comparative analysis, comparing distinct BADAX cause-effect dynamical associations within the intracategoricals and or intercategoricals effectivenesses and or efficiencies inferred from certain clothing, compared to optimize one's thinking and or subsequent conducts to engage thermoregulation, optimizing one's subjective well-being and or underlying psychological need satisfaction within cultivating one's unique self-knowledge and or self-awareness. That's all I want to say for this video. Hope you have an awesome one. Keep learning this. After that.